Hey, welcome back to the 167. I'm here with Pastor Rick George.
Oh, hey, good morning.
Oh,
Yes.
hey.
Is it morning? Yes, it is.
Yeah. Not all of us got to sleep in this morning.
Touche.
Touche. No, we were actually just talking about how stiff we are now and how old and our muscles are.
You know, if you live long enough, old age catches up to you. Then you just feel stiff and sore and things don't move like it used to. But that's not what we're talking about today.
No. But it's
But
sort
I
of
have
this.
lived a long time. You know, I've learned a lot in my humble brag,
Yeah.
and just kind of,
I'll say it's our humility, that comes with age because when you
Yes.
turn 30, your body humbles you.
yeah.
I was laughing at our music director, Jake, who, when we were at camp this week, was complaining about how much his back hurt and stuff. I was like, you are like 27.
Yeah.
don't even talk to me, dude.
So that when you get older, those are the kind of humble brags that just come out. Sometimes unintentionally, sometimes very intentionally.
Like, look, I reached down and touched my toes.
Yeah, it's like, back when I was your age, I could do it. But look, I can do, and then we say what we can do better than somebody else, even though it's that humble brag.
That's why you start heavy lifting instead of running, because your knees.
Yeah. So
So we were
anyway,
talking about humility this week and our humble
were.
brags.
we were.
So, and taking selfies, right?
We took some selfies. So first of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone who took a selfie during church. Or man, we got selfies. People were on the road. They were on vacation. We have one family that because of their work, they travel. They drive a truck. They were in the cab of their tractor trailer, and they took a selfie because they were watching online from wherever they were in Kentucky or something, And
Nice.
so, yeah, thank you so much for everyone who took a selfie and posted it. And it was a great thing. I mean, I've gotten comments from people who said, I didn't want to do it, but I'm thankful that I did because, I never posted anything on Facebook. But when I posted it, this person reached out to me and I hadn't talked to them forever. So it was a good thing.
That's good. And it's weird because, like you said, like you're posting a self-day thing, it seems self-focused, but you're able to turn that and say, like, hey, tag the church. It creates excitement with people that get to ask questions about it.
Yeah, so it was kind of a twofold purpose of the selfie. One was some people were very uncomfortable with posting whatever picture came up, and like I did talk to a few people that were like, I didn't want to post it. I need to take a new picture because my eyes were closed, or I didn't like the way it looked, and it's like that was all part of the process. So,
I read a statistic once that it said, on average, like teenage girls, young 20s girls, that they will take 27 photos for every one photo that they post. So they'll sit there and be like, pop, 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 and fire off 27 photos and then pick one photos to put it up on Instagram. And they said even in that, it's like they may end up taking it down.
Yeah, and it's why filters are such a big deal now. For you can have those apps on our phone that once you take a picture, you can put a filter on it and make everything look a lot better than it really looks. And it's all about image. It's all about presenting ourselves in the best light. And it all goes back to that proverb that I quoted from the beginning, not a proverb from the Bible, but an old African proverb that says, until the lion learns to write, every story will glorify the hunter.
Yeah.
Like every story is going to glorify the one writing the story. And we want people to see us the way we want them to see us.
When I heard you say that I watched it on video because I was at camp, but when I heard you say that, I just, in my cartoon brain, I imagine like the lion going back to the pride, being like, oh man, this one guy, this hunter was this big.
And I took him down.
Like he had a gun. It was like, I think 42 gauge.
Yeah.
Just like bragging. No, but we were talking about humility, and I think that you touched on a really good point, because I think that people oftentimes are confused as to what humility is. Like a lot of times people think that humility is this beat downness of like, if I walk to you and go, oh, I love your shirt, and you're like, well, anything that you see in me is Jesus, so like Jesus just gave me this shirt, and like it's this really like, oh, you might like the shirt, but I don't know, it's kind of ratty, and I don't, like it's always that I have to minimize whatever's happening to
like
me.
for me, So it's true. Like what I'm saying is true.
Right.
But oftentimes, and I'm getting better at it, but oftentimes I would say, oh, yeah, I got this on sale. You know, it's like
Kohl's
it's not.
Cash.
And so you try to downplay instead of saying, yeah, I saw this shirt, man. It was like, I love the shirt. I'm glad that you enjoy it too. But yeah, it's a comfortable shirt. But thanks for noticing. And,
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
It took me a concerted effort that usually when somebody comes and pays me a compliment, I just have to say thank you
Yeah.
and just leave it. You know, it's like, and you probably experience this a lot too, where you come off stage and somebody say, "Oh, Pastor, I enjoyed your message today,"
I know.
and there's
People
always,
tell you that?
yeah.
I've never had that.
Are you serious?
No,
I'm just kidding. They don't tell you that they enjoy my messages.
Yeah, I hear it all the time. I enjoyed Lucas's message. When is he going to preach again?
No, but like when people come up to you and they say, "Oh, I enjoyed this or enjoyed that," or "You ministered to me," I've seen people that do that whole thing where it's like, "Well, anything that you see in me, like
Yeah.
you know, I didn't do anything. It's all you know, like," and they try and do that and they minimize it, and it's like, you know, just to be able to look at it and go, "Thanks,
Yeah.
I'm glad that ministered to you."
Yeah,
You know,
it was funny. I don't know if I told you this or not, but right after, I don't remember, I think it was second service, there was a young man, probably, I don't know, 10 or 12 years old, standing off to the side in the lobby. And when I was done talking, he walked up to me and he said, "Hey, Pastor, what does it feel like to be famous?" And I chuckled. And I'm like, I don't really know. And then I looked at him and said, "But I do want you to know I'm kind of a big deal." You know, so
there you go.
so it was that humble brag.
Humble
It's
brag.
like, so it is funny how people look at other people and recognize something in them, and then when you notice that they have a gift. So in second service, when Pastor Andrew came up and was padding, kind of playing the keyboard at the end of the message, I just felt led to mention him because I had talked about how people try to downplay their own gifts and abilities, and I said, you know, it would just be ridiculous for me to say to Andrew, like, "Man, you're so gifted," and for him to say, it'd be ridiculous for him to say, "Oh, no, no, no." It's like, no, he's incredibly talented,
Right.
and there's nothing wrong with someone with a gift and having talent to say, "Man, thank you for noticing that." And yeah, I've been blessed and I've worked hard and I'm glad that it blessed you. That's not being prideful. That's in humility saying, "Well, thank you."
Well, I remember somebody saying they mentioned in the Bible how Moses, of course, is writing the Pentateuch, and he's writing this thing, and it says Moses, who was the most humble man who ever lived. And I was like going, what? You know, like, and I'm going, didn't he write this? And somebody mentioned to me, said, you know, if God told you to write that, that is probably the greatest act of humility that you've ever done, is to be able to write that and not be like, oh, I'm being braggadocious about it. But God's like, hey, write this down. And he's like, okay, you know, and he just wrote it and was like, there it is. He didn't go, Moses was humble, but you know, it was you know.
Yeah. And so we were reading there in 2 Corinthians where the Apostle Paul, like, you can tell he's just kind of had it with all the talk that he's been hearing about these super apostles. And he's like, all right, you know, if you want to brag, if you want to flex, like I taught the old people a new word, flexing, right? So if you want to flex, I can flex. And he does a little bit. He's like, man, I'm just so tired of hearing you. Like you're Hebrew, me too.
I love that he does. He's like, if you want to flex, I could mention this, this, and this, but who has time to mention?
I'm not going to mention. And I'm not going to mention all these other things. So we'll just move on.
But I mean, I do think that it's like people have this misconception of what humility is. So how do we know how to really walk in humility when there's so much falseness built up around that?
Yeah, so I think it all it comes down to who ultimately, at the end of all of it, receives the most glory, the most attention. And if it's all about you, it's probably not in humility. Like, it can be somewhat, just like we were talking about, you know, someone who's very gifted in speaking or singing or playing an instrument or teaching or whatever it might be. And for someone to say, man, you are, like, it was amazing. You did a great job singing. And if ultimately it was, I'm really good and I've worked really hard and, I just love it when I'm able to stand on the stage and sing and see how it blesses other people. It's like, okay, some of that is not a bad thing, but the focus is just on you.
Mm-hmm.
But when the honor and the glory and the focus ultimately leads to, but God is the one, like, yeah, I enjoy doing this and it's a gift, but ultimately it came from him and it belongs to him. If the glory goes back to him, that's humility. If it's all just, hey, it's about me and I'm awesome and I want you to keep praising me, that's where it becomes a problem.
Well, and even that kind of false humility that we just talked about. If somebody comes up to you and say you sang at church, right? Somebody comes up to you and goes, "Oh, I really enjoyed your singing on that." And if you're like, "Oh, it's just my humble get," and, and you start to do that, what's really happening inside your head sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, is I have to make sure that I appear humble. I have to make sure that I do this in order to deflect away against this. And you're still like focused on yourself. You brought that up where you said, humility is not necessarily, how did you put it?
It's not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're not still worried about, well, if I say thank you, am I too, like, it's just going, hey, thanks. And if part of your story is, I used to sing karaoke and all that, and it never really brought me very much joy, but this brings me a lot of joy. So I'm happy. Like that's a great way to share and give God glory when it's not, I'm a worm. I'm so, I couldn't possibly hold a candle to,
Yeah, like I was gonna,
yourself.
and it was a fail on my part. So I'll just preface with that. But
in your humility, you will share
in my
with us.
humility, yes. So I was going to say, it just did not present itself right as for God or whatever. But I was going to say, in humility, like I was reminded this past week of a song from the past. Mac Davis did a song, and I didn't want to brag or boast about my singing abilities, so I didn't want to sing. Although there were a lot of people who complimented me on how well I sang Johnny Cash last week. It's that humble. But I didn't want to, do it this week. But Mac Davis wrote a song called "Oh Lord, It's Hard to Be Humble When You're Perfect in Every Way."
Yeah.
That old song. And so I was going to sing that.
He wrote that about me, by the way.
Yeah, so I was going to write it, or I was going to sing it because, I did such a great job, but I didn't want to be boastful.
Yeah.
So I tempered it back.
That's good. Now, when you talked, at the beginning of the sermon, you talked about how pride is divisive and that humility creates unity. So what are the ways that kind of pride is divisive? I mean, usually people don't think of it when they're thinking about pride and humility. They're thinking about boasting and they're thinking about kind of a heart issue. But how does that become a divisive thing in a community?
Yeah. So how it divides is, I am not concerned about what you think, what your opinion is, how you feel. Nothing about you. It's about me. And so in churches, when it comes to programming or styles, or in some more traditional churches where they have church votes in their church government, it's like it creates this division because I wanted the blue carpet and I don't care that you wanted the gray carpet. Like that's stupid. Like I don't care about you. I want this. And it just creates hard feelings and division. So then it filters down into, life when you say, well, you should come to my life group and not their life group. And you're like, well, I kind of, well, you should come here because we're better. We do this. And then it doesn't come across oftentimes so aggressive, but kind of covertly what we're saying is this ministry that I'm doing is better than the ministry that you're doing or that you're involved in. And so even if it's, you should quit going to your church and come to our church. It's like, that's just, it creates division where we have classes, like this is better than you, or, different.
We have like a level 7 Christian rather than a level 2.
Yeah. And so if you were just part of our group, you would understand, and you're less than, and people start to feel this sense of not unity, like not that we're being supported, but that we're in competition, and it creates division. It's just, yeah, it happens more often than probably would want to admit.
Well, something that was top of mind for me, just being at the retreat with the kids, I had to speak, and I was speaking on 1 Corinthians 12, which is on the body. And I brought this poor girl in the front row, brought her up, and I brought a dodgeball, and it was a soft dodgeball.
Okay,
So, like,
yeah.
just disclaimer, like, she was fine. But, in Paul's writing there, he says, the eyes can't say to the hand, I don't need you. And I said, okay, I just want you to catch this. And I threw the ball, or, I said, I'm going to throw it at your face. And so I threw it, and she caught it. And I said, okay, now your eyes, like, your eyes are so great. Like, they don't need your hands, it's that pride. And it's like, so I made her put her hands behind her back, and I just hit her in the face with the ball. And I was like, how'd that work out for you? She's like, not good. I said, okay, that's fine. But you know what? Your hands, they know that they are the real deal. So they don't need your eyes. So go ahead and shut your eyes. She shut her eyes, and I was like, okay, now catch this ball. And she like whiffed at it, and I just hit her in the face again. And I was like, that seems really silly, right? And she's like, yeah. I said, but that's what it is. Because we were talking to the kids about clicks.
Yeah, and now you need your hands to wipe the blood from your nose,
That's right.
from the bloody nose that you got,
And to
from
sign the lawsuit. It's the no, but I was just talking about, because everybody wants to talk about clicks, and I said there's nothing wrong with having some friends. It's when your group starts to look at the other group and say, ugh,
losers.
yeah, look at their
Yeah.
shoes. I don't I don't know, like, I just don't like them.
Yeah.
And it's like, rather than being able to recognize when you can see other people's gifts, where I said, I brought up the thing in my high school, we had class Olympics. Did you guys ever do that? Nobody, apparently this is a thing just in my high school. But so at the end of the year, they would do like, all the classes would, assign people to events. And so I'm like, me and my friends, not big on the tug of rope, but it's like, but we would go and do like the trivia and stuff like that, because we would, we were smart kids, and we just know it. We would do the math competition. We would like score really high in that. And then we could sit around and go, well, those football players, they're so stupid and blah, 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 blah. But then tug of war came around, and it was like, Kyle, like we get all the football players, like we need you. And so it was like, you couldn't really discard one person or the other.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I think we fall into that with pride, where we'll be looking around the church and that same thing. Well, my gifting is singing, and my gifting is, we have the best life group, like you said, or like, well, I do this and they do that, and it's like, well, if they just did this, they would be better Christians.
yeah, and on the flip side, the false humility is destructive and creates division, because then we're in our false humility saying, well, I don't sing like they do, therefore I can't do anything.
Right, I'm worthless.
Like I'm just, and so we think less of ourselves instead of just thinking of ourselves less. And it's that warped sense of humility that now I don't do anything because I can't do it as good as they do. They're just a lot better than me, and I've got nothing to offer, and that's destructive also.
Well, is that what you're kind of getting at, or you want to flesh that out for me a little bit further? Because I think that was the thing I was surprised with, that I didn't really notice in the scripture, and you pointed that out, is it talks about enjoying the interests of others.
Yeah.
And like, when I think about humility, that's not something that's like top of mind for me. I'm not like, because usually for us, it's just like, that's not my thing. Who cares? And I'm just not going to do it. But what is that connection between actually enjoying the interest of others and humility and pride?
Yeah. So when you can say, I don't like that, like I don't enjoy doing that, but I love you. And because I care about you, I will lay down my own selfish desires to go do something else, and I will enjoy the interest that you have, whatever that might be. Okay, so for some people, it may be, I hate KU basketball. Like I am not a basketball fan. I don't care about basketball, but you have a friend who is all about basketball.
Yeah.
And they say, man, I'd love to watch the game. You're like, yeah, I'm not going to. But humility would say, although I don't really enjoy doing that, I will enjoy doing it with you because you enjoy it. And I will pay attention, and I'm not going to sit there and say, this is so dumb, and I don't know why you enjoy it. And I mean, that's pride saying you're less than, you should be like me and or I don't care about you, but I'm going to enjoy this with you, not because it's what I love, but it's because what you love.
Yeah.
And that's humility.
I don't know if you ever watched it, but there's a TV show called Ted Lasso, and it's not Christian TV disclaimer. It's not like,
Oh, then I've never seen it.
there you go. But it has like, there's a bunch of clips basically on Instagram. He does these little mini inspirational speeches, and like once an episode. And one of them, he talks about how he had a friend, and he's supposedly from Kansas. So he's like, oh, it's Chiefs country. He goes, I had one friend who was a Denver Broncos fan. And I said, I didn't care, and it's like, and so he says, I didn't care, but he goes, twice they went to the Super Bowl, and he goes, and he watched those games alone. And I didn't go over to his house. I didn't bring any, he says 7-layer dip, like, he's like, I didn't bring anything over, and I didn't watch him with him, and he had to watch them alone. And he goes, that wasn't being a very good friend, because he was like, well, I don't care because it's not my team and it's not that. So I can definitely see the unity piece in that.
Yeah, same idea. It's like I'm willing to lay down what I think is more important for the sake of unity, for the sake of us building something together, enjoying an experience together, even though it's not the thing that I would love to do.
Well, I think you touched on something that's very important, because even if you do go and the whole time you're rolling your eyes, you're like, oh, I don't know. And, like, it's just, no, that's not any fun.
Yeah.
Like, nobody likes that. And it's going to ruin the experience for the person that actually enjoys
Right.
it.
And that comes across as, you being arrogant or better than,
Well, it's
or
self-focused.
Yeah, self-focused, and it just is not productive, and it creates division and problems.
Well, and I think that's really an important point too, with when you're talking to young people and things like that, about that, where you're saying it's not about focusing on yourself, because social media and all those things, I think that we've seen by now that the research that is showing us is the reason it is so destructive is the self-focus. How many likes did I get? How many this, how many that? And our culture has really been focused, and they've taken this word and they've, made it mean different things in the culture. But pride is a huge thing in our culture, whether you want to talk about like Pride Month, or just you should be prideful about this, body positivity, like whatever you are doing, whether it is, healthy for you or not healthy for you, or straight up debauchery, is like, you should be proud of this and put it on the internet and show everybody what's going on. And so that's very much our culture right now, is pride, 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 pride. And so what would be some of the things that you recommend to our congregation, or even the young people who are going, well, if I'm not posting every day on TikTok, if I'm not, super proud of everything that I do, how am I supposed to balance that in this culture? Like, what are some of the things that they could actively do?
Yeah. So I agree with you. Like, the whole focus on self and pride, and whoever you are, just be proud of that. So there's a little bit of that is good. Like, you have to understand who you are, and not, again, think less of
I'm
yourself.
a worm.
not
I'm
think
worthless.
less of yourself, but also don't think more highly of yourself than you ought to. And that's where our culture has kind of swung. And so as we relate to people in culture, it's praying and seeking a good balance of that, being proud of some of my accomplishments and how God's created me and the things I can do, and still having the humility of it's not all about me, and speaking into the lives of other people and helping them. So to encourage other people. Right? Yeah. So it's not wrong to post things on Facebook, but how often do you see people posting about their friend who did something awesome? Hey, I just want to, shout out my friend who did this or that, or to celebrate them. Like, it's easier to like make ourselves look good.
That's a really interesting thing to think about. Is it's called social media, but really your profile is all about you.
Yeah.
Like, what if you had your social media feed featured the people in your social circle more than it featured you?
Yeah. How often, like, you just, my mind is spinning. So I'm thinking, how often have I seen pictures of someone on a cruise,
right,
that was shared and posted by a friend of the person who was on the cruise, not the person who went on the cruise, or not the person who was doing the amazing thing, but it was, a friend who, a couple of weeks later saw some pictures and said, hey, I just want to celebrate with my friend who was able to do this incredible thing. And they would never post this about themselves, but I just want to say, what an awesome friend, and I'm so happy that they were able to do this thing. Like, you never see that.
Well, it's a little bit what you challenged people to on Sunday was take a selfie at church, but tag us in it,
Yeah.
like check in, do
Yeah.
whatever. And so it's essentially celebrating in community. And then what we did this week was we found as many of those as we possibly could and then reshared them on our feed.
Yeah.
And I'm going, that's an interesting concept of how to be countercultural, even if you're on social media, is how do you celebrate the people around you more than you are celebrating yourself?
Right. And so I would guess if you did, because my mind is just spinning from that question, my guess is if you were to do a research project, you would find that nobody else is going to celebrate me because everybody's celebrating themselves. So I have to do it myself or I'll get lost in the shuffle. Right?
Right.
No one's even going to know me. No one's going to care about me. So I have to speak up for myself. But what would it look like if we were so thoughtful of the other person that we were celebrating them on social media and we weren't celebrating ourselves? What would that look like? Wow, that's deep.
It's deep. Look at him cook. No, I just think that that's great because that's also, you and I have talked about this. Like, I think male culture sometimes is like when people talk about masculinity versus toxic masculinity. I'm just going, I really like gym culture. There was a reel that was going viral the last couple of weeks where this girl said, she was talking about her first experience at the gym. And she said, I went to the gym and I was really nervous. And she goes, it was great. She goes, I thought that there was going to be guys who were like, going to be mean to me and blah, blah. And she goes, it's just bros. They're in the gym. They're like, hey buddy, great set. Some guy will be struggling. They'll come on, one more, and they'll get on him. And she goes, it's just a bunch of like the guys, they're just like, just bros. And they're like, they're super helpful. And like, they're just really encouraging. And I'm going, I love that culture. Like with men where like, you see it here in our church. Like I try and be intentional about that with my friends too, where I walk in and go, man, I like that shirt. Look at you. Like, look how good you look. And they're like, stop it. And it's just this thing though, that people want to be around you and then they'll reciprocate it. So I can be hunting for compliments and doing things like, did you see my shirt? But it's like, but when you are the person that is going, man, look at this guy. Like, you're looking good today. And it's like, and you're building up and encouraging, it widens your social network. And it's like in your humility and your focus on other people, then it allows other people to care for you as well.
Yeah. So yeah, the pride and humility blend of saying, I need to recognize how God has created me, and I don't want to downplay that, and I don't want to downplay the gifts, but I don't want to celebrate them to the point where it's all about me and it's never about anyone else, and I get all the attention and I get the glory. Yeah, it's a delicate dance, a little bit of a balance there, and yeah, the false humility is not a good thing either. The humble brags, and I had a number of people after service, and then
Send you
some,
a bunch.
yeah, some sent me some things or talked to me right after service and said, "Gosh, I noticed that I've been guilty of the humble brag before, like, oh, I'm not that good, but then I did this, and look at me." And so,
Well, we'll challenge you this week if you guys are listening to this. If you are going to post something about yourself, maybe even your kids, try and find something else that somebody else has posted that you're proud of them and share that and just brag on other people for a little while. But I hope you join us next week. We'll be back here in the 167. We're going to continue the series, Walk the Line. See you next time.